Thank you. And we do have just a brief change to our schedule here. So we'll be talking about catalyzing and supporting grassroots resilience action with small grants. So a couple of our speakers have already mentioned the RAFT fund. Thank you so much for bringing that up. We appreciate all of the exciting work that you were able to do with those grants. So we awarded a total of 14 mini and micro grants. They ranged between $5,000 and $25,000. They were granted to build resilience in the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula. These proposals were awarded as part of a program that was funded to the tune of $150,000 that was generously provided by the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. The funded projects had a strong community involvement component, were cost-effective, and contributed to social and economic success. The report summaries are going to be available on our RAFT website soon, but we have invited several of our grantees to talk with us today about their experience. I have highlighted some of the pictures that they sent in with some of the reports here of some of the work that they were able to do. So we have some community engagement and some building restoration and some public information campaigns all imaged here. I do have summaries that I can give to fill extra time after our speakers speak, if we have that time, to just give you an idea of all of the ones that were completed. You're only not hearing from about 5 of our grantees by the time we're done today. But since we do have our group here, I am gonna tell you about this minor change to our agenda. Unfortunately, Brandon couldn't attend today. He had a bit of a family emergency. So we will be having Tommy Hicks speak at this time about the grants that he was involved with. So Tommy is the ETA manager in the public safety division at the Berkeley Group LLC. But prior to that, Tommy wore a couple of different hats that brought him to work with the RAFT Fund. So Tommy, can you unmute and share a little bit about your experiences?
Yeah, no, thank y'all so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here on a kind of still a cool, brisk afternoon and morning. I had the opportunity kind of from 2 different angles participate in the RAFT project and the funds. One, as a member of the Kinsale community here in Westmoreland County and part of their volunteer fire department, we were able to successfully secure a grant for $5,000. And we really tried to use those funds to help address a little bit of that initial if you will, blue skies planning for resiliency in the community engagement, and getting people involved. So those funds actually went towards several different initiatives. We did a community survey to find out what folks thought were a concern or risk in their community with regards to flooding, storms, preparedness for hurricanes and different types of events. So that gleaned some very useful knowledge back to the department. We also were able to get together the business community, and we had hosted a luncheon and talked about everything from insurances and how resiliency and planning can actually reduce insurance costs. And we had a very successful opportunity to that. That has now spun into, from a sustainability aspect, a group that's been named GRAIN, which is really kind of a community-based business community set of meetings that occur on the first Monday of every month. And that's starting to move in a very successful ways. For example, in January when we meet, we have some folks from the banking community who are speaking to several of us in the small business environment, talking about some of the risks and some of the threats to a small business with people stealing checks and some of the things that have happened. So long story short of that is I think that will continue to grow and evolve, and it will be business leaders and business owners coming together to talk about everything from economic development to things that would make them more successful for their community. We were able to do an assessment of the local fire station to determine if it was properly aligned to be a shelter for the community. And if we had to do some expansion, what pathway was the right path to go there? So that created some very beneficial information that helped guide those future decisions of the local department. The other piece that has been really exciting, I think, from the Northern Neck side has been some of the data that we received. We were able to apply for some training funds. So over the course of about the next 3 years, we've received about $100,000 in grant funds towards firefighter training. So this is at the entry level and up to, folks who are new into the volunteer fire department systems. Right now we've hosted 5 classes throughout the community. We've had in those classes 12 different volunteer agencies throughout the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck participate. We've hosted classes everywhere from Essex County to Northumberland to Westmoreland and so forth. So being able to continue to offer some of those resources to our smaller agencies here in the county and surrounding counties, I think has been very beneficial. So, from that perspective, I think it's been a win-win for Westmoreland County and, the Kinsale community and the efforts there. The second grant I had the opportunity to participate in is through Essex County. I was serving as a temporary interim of emergency services for them for a period of about 9 to 12 months. And this was doing the RAFT project. That actually reaped quite a few valuable resources to the community and to the county government, in the sense of RAFT in general allowed us to really bring the stakeholders together, have some really courageous conversations around temporary sheltering along with long-term needs of the community. And we talked about everything from septic systems to food needs to, some of those other things around emergency management. The grant funds that were received for Essex County was very beneficial in the sense that it allowed the county to kind of take a deeper reflection into its emergency operation plan, begin some of the rewrite of that plan. It also was used to evaluate the emergency operations center and what had been done in the past. New space has been identified. Plans have been drawn up for redefining that space through the county building official, and they are in the process right now of creating a new space. Some of the collaboration and efforts associated with all this allowed us to receive some technology through the school system to help outfit the new emergency operations center. So again, several key components to planning and resiliency from the Essex County side. And happy to answer any questions or elaborate on anything, but I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Tommy. And we will have time for questions at the end, but if you think of them now, please put them in the chat and we will make sure to get back to those. Our next speaker in this session is going to be Miss Darlene Watson, who is the Housing Support Specialist at Bay Aging. Thank you for unmuting, and go ahead when you're ready.
Thanks, Nicole. So Bay Aging's Homeless Solutions Program, we provide a couple of programs to help individuals experiencing homelessness and housing crisis in the 10 counties of the Northern Middle Peninsula. But one in particular, it's our Rapid Rehousing Program. In early of the fiscal year 23, we fully expended our federal and state funding in about 10 weeks, which usually it takes us the full year to fully expend. This was due to a lot of things. There was the sort of unraveling of all the COVID money that was coming down, excuse me, and just a general economic crisis in the area that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So the timing of the RAFT grant was really fortuitous for us because we were in desperate need of some funding to help support the dwindling funds that we had. So initially we applied for the $25,000 grant to serve 8 households. And these households were going to be those that were of highest need in our community. We assessed vulnerability with things like are there children living in a household? Is this an elderly household with maybe some serious medical issues that are going to put them at greater risk if they're unhoused, things like that. Due to an excellent administration from our housing case managers and support from within Bay Aging itself, we were actually able to serve 25 households. And we were able to pay for things like rent, security deposits, utility bills, even down to gas cards and grocery cards, which it doesn't sound like a lot, a $25 gas card, but it can mean the difference between housing and no housing, just because if it lets you get to work to get the paycheck to pay for the housing, that $25 can be a really huge impact. We also helped with transit passes, court fees for folks that were facing eviction, things like that, and bought some couple of tubes of toothpaste and some soap with our kind of bottom funds that last sort of $50. But the biggest impact was really the flexibility that the RAFT grant allowed us. So with our traditional funding from the Department of Housing and Community Development, we are sort of hemmed in by state and federal guidelines, which are put there in place to help manage the funding and make sure the right people are getting the funding, but it's not really tailored to a rural community like ours. So there's a lot of things that we need to do that we can't do. A lot of definitions of things that don't quite fit our community, our neighbors, our friends that are struggling. So with the RAFT fund, we took the baseline of the rapid rehousing program that we have been administering from the state and federal level, and we were able to tweak it to really fit our friends and neighbors in times of crisis and need. And that's why we were able to serve so many households. It ended up being roughly 40 individuals in the entirety of the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula. So we're really proud of the program. It touched a lot of lives. And I'm really looking forward to answering any questions you all have. I don't want to go too deep into sort of the weeds of the program. It can get a little wordy. But yeah, it was a fantastic program, really.
All right. Thank you so much, Darlene. And if you think of questions for Darlene, please pop those in the chat and we will get to those shortly. Our next speaker in this session is going to be Brent Hunsinger, who is the Tribal Programs Manager and State Policy Coordinator at Friends of the Rappahannock. So Brent, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Brent, if I could just, I know that you said potentially you could share your screen with some information. Maddie, I don't know if it's possible to add Brent as a co-host so that he could share his screen or the like.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. While we're doing that, like I said, my name is Brent Hunsinger. I'm with Friends of the Rappahannock. I work out of our Tappahannock office, and we were lucky enough to receive, let me see, share screen. Okay. So I will have just some examples of some of the things that we shared with you all. So like I said, we were lucky enough to receive 2 micro grants working with RAFT. We participated, first of all, in the Northern Neck session a couple of years ago, and then last year in the Middle Peninsula as well. And we were able to apply and receive 2 different grants. One for the Middle Peninsula to conduct septic outreach to the community, focused on Essex and Middlesex counties, as well as we received another grant that I won't talk about as much today for the Northern Neck. That work is ongoing for shoreline management and trying to get the word out about all the different things related to shoreline management on the Northern Neck. So like I said, we were lucky enough to receive a mini grant for septic outreach. So if I'm sure many people here know about the issue of septic issues. So basically, to review quickly, there are two different systems. There are sewer systems in more densely populated areas. Usually you have more people based on septic where you flush the toilet and it goes to a wastewater treatment system. The other issue in more rural areas is where you have wastewater treatment sites on site usually, and those are your septic systems. In the Middle Peninsula, especially the further down river you go, in the Rappahannock, I'm speaking about the Rappahannock, or the further out on the peninsula you go, due to kind of climate change, sea level rise, higher tides during sunny days, or storm driven, but also increased rain intensity. Basically, we're beginning to see septic systems beginning to fail more often, and that can be from a couple things. That can be from them not being maintained or pumped out properly over time, which is something that can be because of a variety of reasons. Some people just don't know that you're supposed to pump them out over time, or they don't have the resources to pump them out, or that they just get old. You know, septic systems are usually 30 to 40 years, and then they need to be replaced, and they can be very expensive to replace. The other reason can be that they are used more, and that they're not they're designed for a certain number of bedrooms or flushes, and that so those flushes are exceeded over time. And so essentially flooded and failing septic systems are a human health hazard, and they are a water quality hazard. And they can harm the economy of a place as well, because a couple of things can happen. It can basically pollute groundwater, drinking water systems, but also can pollute your surface water, your rivers and your creeks, where they might be growing shellfish and other things that people are depending on for their economy. So what Friends of the Rappahannock did is we tried to undertake as much, I won't call it comprehensive, but a fairly robust outreach campaign to the general public, utilizing a lot of times these days, your outreach avenues differ by where you are. In the more urban Fredericksburg area, we would utilize more social media and social things like that. In your rural areas, where frankly the internet sometimes does not extend to places where, although it's getting better with broadband and fiber being laid out, more traditional areas, uses of outreach can be utilized. And so what Friends of the Rappahannock did is we worked with a Master's of Public Health student who came on board to help us, as well as our staff, to create a series of advertisements, articles, rack cards that kind of laid out the different responsibilities and effects that happen because of failing and septic systems that have failed or could be failing over time. And it could be as simple as we did a radio campaign for a month for 30-minute long and 1-minute ads on 2 radio stations based out of Rappahannock that broadcasted the Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula. We were able to create rack cards that will be able to be used and that we have handed out to community members and other organizations. So when they're doing outreach, they're able to kind of give those to people that kind of laid out the different responsibilities and effects from flooding septic systems. The other thing that we did is we tried to connect them to a couple of places where they might be able to find financial assistance and the best place to find out more information about their septic systems. And that was the Virginia Department of Health, Three Rivers office, as well as the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. Both have excellent work, and they do great work and great resources for that. And so if I can share a little bit, some of the things that we did. You can kind of see as simple as this would be a handbill that we created with a very simple visual, tried to keep things very simplified, your language, so that people could kind of understand exactly what it was. And you can see that we tried to provide information to those places. You know, we just found that, and we also created a postcard that we worked with the septic mapping tool from VIMS to identify hotspots in communities, to try and send these postcards to those communities that have been identified as potential hotspots for septic failure over time. I guess I'll stop there, but that's kind of what we were able to do with that grant. Yeah, it was hopefully productive, and obviously we can do all the outreach, but we also continue to work for funding to try and help people pay for pump outs as well as new septic systems over time, because septic is kind of what has been called a ticking time bomb in Tidewater, Virginia, because of so many systems that might not be maintained. And as sea levels rise, more and more systems are going to become flooded over time. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Brent. We appreciate it. So I think that these grantees have given a great overview of some of the variety of grants that we were able to provide. I'm going to quickly go through just a few that we weren't able to highlight yet. So in review so far today, you've been able to hear from Bay Aging, the Coppell Fire Department, Essex Emergency Services, Friends of the Rappahannock, Just Harvest, and Thrive. Those were in some of our earlier presentations, those last two. But we haven't heard from Healthy Harvest Fresh, whose staff members utilized instructional technology components to engage in a variety of events. The Northeast District Meeting of Family and Consumer Science Agents, as well as Virginia Tech Specialists, the Healthy Harvest Fresh Advisory Council meeting, the Food Bank Healthy Harvest Fresh Board meeting, the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund grantee reception, staff group trainings, and a greenhouse camera live stream. The Mattaponi Indian Tribe and Reservation provided maintenance on the fish hatchery, i.e. the decking, well pump, HVAC, and basic systems for the hatchery to open for the spring American shad season, and established a brick and mortar environmental office that will house 2 full-time employees to continue their environmental resilience and capacity building projects. The Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission staff drafted the RAFT application for septic pump out assistance, like Brett was calling for in his presentation, as well as a related notification and announcements, resulting in a total of 131 applications distributed to homeowners. 96% of the homeowners that applied received Social Security as their primary source of income. 78 applications were received and reviewed. 65 vouchers were issued on a first-come, first-served basis. 13 approved applicants were placed on the wait list. 63 invoices and vouchers from participatory haulers were processed for completed septic pump outs, including 20 in Essex County, 6 in Gloucester County, 4 in King and Queen, 10 in King William, 5 in Matthews, and 18 in Middlesex. The Richmond County Fire Department purchased a new Sparky mascot outfit for the fire department to teach fire safety and attend the Richmond County Fair. There were 20,000 plus in attendance for that week. They also went to several events with the YMCA with 300 plus in attendance for soccer camps, the Richmond County Schools, K through 4th grade, and the annual Trunk or Treat in downtown Warsaw, which had 1,200 plus in attendance. And then our last one is the Woodville Rosenwald School Foundation, which purchased and installed 2 exterior doors for the Woodville School that were custom manufactured to be consistent with the historic doors used in the original school. And at that time, these meet the requirements of the building code currently in force to provide the first impression of the building for visitors and will ensure building security and safety when it opens to the public. And our final grantee is Guest. They're still pending their final report, but they've been doing some great work so far. So I look forward to you reading that on our website.
I think I'll just, as we wait for questions, I'll just comment, Nicole, that these grants really reflect, again, more learning and evolution of how we think about resilience. One of the ones that we had long discussions about is, the Rosenwald School. How does that relate to resilience? And really, actually, one of the things we learned right from the get-go on the Eastern Shore is that cultural heritage and identity associated with place, right, is so important for a sense of the community's resilience and continuity, and that we can't ignore the cultural aspects of community identity in terms of its long-term resilience. And if something is in peril and is at risk, what are we going to do? These are questions we haven't answered. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, Tanya, I fully agree. And it's a really present issue in the Northern Neck as we embark on our National Heritage Area management plan. And we're going to be undergoing strategic planning in a 5-county area, plus King George, and cultural inclusion and definitely contributes to increased cultural capacity, and that capacity building creates future resilience within communities, and that's a process that we're embarking on that now, but it's great.
Well, I think it'd be interesting, I'd love to learn more as you move along, because I think this is one of the biggest issues is creating capacity at the local level for that resilience. And what does that look like? How do you go about it? Right. It's so please, please stay in touch, and we need to continue to learn from each other as we go down this journey of climate impacts. So I'll just continue to comment before we roll into the next piece, which is I'll create the link to the next piece, which is this. We learned a lot from these mini grants. We learned that organizations embedded in their communities, I mean, this goes without saying, they know what's needed. And the difficulty is that the funding streams for climate impacts are really narrow and targeted, and exclude a host of activities that can help a community build its resilience. And so something like these mini grants, micro and mini grants, really can have a big impact. That's, I think, one of our biggest lessons, is that we have to begin to think creatively about how do we, and this is the broad we, not just the 3 universities that are involved in the RAFT, but how do we writ large begin to conceive and create funding streams that are more flexible for the organizations on the ground that can make these differences to do what they know needs to be done. And so that's really, I think, a big question that I don't know that anybody has figured this one out, but it's a really clear need that we see. We were fortunate enough to get the funding, as Nicole said, from the Jesse Ball DuPont, and basically make the argument to them that we had this idea that mini and micro grants could be hugely impactful. Would they be willing to give it a try? And they did. And we'd like to be able to do that in other regions as well. But how do we create a more sustained funding stream that is flexible for these groups on the ground, right?